crust, deep dish Chicago. Would you like to get some pizza? Maybe veggie or cheesy. What's your favorite slice of pizza? Sit down, hang out, now, come and join us eating pizza. We're just some people getting pizza.
Za dudes, welcome back to another episode of PGP. Today we're doing something a little bit differently. I'm here today with one of my favorite streamers, one of the coolest people I know personally, Grimace.
Right.
He's currently in 3 bands, and he's been streaming for about 2.5 years going on. So he's been streaming for a long time. He's partnered, and he's doing great. He's one of the best players I know in Halo, and probably every other shooter that I've ever played. Today we're doing something a little bit differently. Normally, of course, you guys know we have the 3 other people we know and love, Mickey, Sarah, and Michelle. However, I decided to go across the world, basically, and visit some of my favorite people, starting with Grimace. We're going to be talking about 2 things that I believe he super specializes in: streaming and gaming. Let's dig in.
Sweet. Sounds good. And we have pizza.
Pizza. This pizza actually came from Grimaldi's, and it is one of Grimace's favorite kinds. He ordered a traditional pizza with...
It's brick oven.
Oh yeah,
It's
cold brick oven.
Cold brick oven pizza.
I think I just ripped off part of that other slice.
It's alright. Here.
Sweet.
Saved.
Bam. Alright. And we got some spicy chicken sausage and some pepperoni.
Yep.
So I was telling a couple of you guys about the show the other day, and you suggested, why don't we call my episode of Grimace Drunk Pizza? And that's exactly what we're doing. Drunk Pizza. We got 2 beers here.
2 6-packs.
2 6-packs, actually.
12 beers.
Whoa.
Yep.
So we got Tropical Torpedo, which is a tropical IPA, and we got Grapefruit Sculpin, part of Ballast Point.
Which is a grapefruit IPA, actually.
Grapefruit IPA.
So they're both fruity IPAs, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Would you do me the honor?
Sure. This is a good beer. I've had this one before. I haven't had this Tropical Torpedo, but Sierra Nevada is good, so we're going to assume it's also good.
All right. Cheers, brother.
Cheers, dude.
Bam.
I like that.
That's good.
This tastes a lot like that, unsurprisingly.
I'll have to try it. So, as I mentioned, you've been streaming for 2.5 years. How do you feel about Twitch and streaming in general?
I feel awesome about it. I mean, I think a lot of people out there still don't know what Twitch is, because I have to explain it a lot. It's just not really, it's not as commonplace as people think it is. I think a lot of people who are on the platform probably consider it to be as established and known as like YouTube, but it's really not. I think a lot of people out there are still discovering it, which is a great thing, because it's obviously really, really big already and it's growing, but I can't count how many times on a monthly basis, like I try to explain to somebody what I do. Just the other day I had a guy in the house like a week or 2 ago who's here to work on the air conditioning, and he wasn't like a totally out of touch guy who doesn't pay attention to pop culture. He was like, I don't know, maybe 10 years older than me, plays in bands and stuff. We were talking about music, and then he came up here to work on the AC, and he saw this room. He's like, whoa, you really like video games, huh? And I was like, yeah, well, my wife and I, we both stream on Twitch full time. And he's like, what's Twitch? And I was like, whoa. And what I always tell people, I'm like, it's like YouTube, but it's live, and there's a chat and stuff. And he's like, that's awesome. That's a really good idea. People tend to have the same reaction. So, I mean, as far as the way I feel about Twitch, I'm very happy about it. But I'm also pretty excited about where it's going because it's still growing, But you know, I've considered myself very fortunate. I consider my channel to be like a small channel that gets big channel treatment. You know, I have really, really, really supportive people who watch my streams and Lindsay's streams, and so, you know, I love it. It gives me an excuse to play video games, get shit-faced, and get paid all at the same time.
Hell yeah.
And it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no one else should do it but this guy.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone trying to copy me?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
For those of you who don't know, the lucky woman who got to be with this man is...
I'd say tricked into being with this man, but yeah.
I feel like maybe she tricked you to let you get with her.
Maybe. Could be. Time will tell.
But she's also a partner streamer that goes by the channel Lindsay Elise. You can, feel free to check her out. I'll link her in the description below. But, in Grimace's words, don't.
I don't. She's streaming right now, actually.
Yeah, right now.
And she doesn't get any of this pizza or beer. If she tries to come in here, it's fucking over. She's gonna get it.
We're not messing. We're gonna give her the high noon.
Yep. Gotta protect our food.
Mm-hmm. But so I have to say, tastes great. If you guys ever get a chance to order from Grimaldi's, do it. # not sponsored. But it's super delicious, and I'm really glad that Grimace picked it.
Yeah, it's solid.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned YouTube, and part of what YouTube has started doing with their YouTube gaming situation is they've started implementing more live stream features. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's more of like copying the coattails of Twitch's success, or?
I don't think so. I'm glad they did. I'm glad that they recognize the potential of live streaming. I think live streaming is a totally different animal. A lot of people would probably think that, hey, if you're big on YouTube, you could be big as a streamer, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I think people who are really good creators on YouTube, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have like the quick wit and the ability to just sort of improv, and because you can't really edit, you can't can your streams. I mean, you could if you wanted to and upload them later, but the live chat interaction, like the way that you have to kind of stay on top of things as they happen, I'm glad that YouTube sees that is a distinct and separate medium. Like YouTube gaming is not lumped in with the rest of YouTube necessarily, like it's sort of its own thing. It's definitely not growing at the level of Twitch, but I'm glad to see that Google has entered that space and that they're pushing it. Mm-hmm. I'm really glad that Microsoft's doing the same thing with Mixer. They seem to be taking that very seriously, and I think they, have some really cool things that hopefully Twitch brings, into their platform as well, like the combined chat thing, streaming in 4K, there's some cool things going on over there. So it's nice to see that Twitch isn't just this standalone entity, completely unchallenged. I think if you have 3 or 4 really big companies going at it with their own version of the platform, that it's just good, because they're all going to try and outdo each other, and we all stand to benefit from that. Mm-hmm. So I'm good. Plus, if I get banned on Twitch, I got a place to go. I got a couple places to go before I run out of town,
You can always stream on live.me.
Yeah. Go to Hitbox with the rest of the misfit toys that are cast out of Twitch.
This is great, Za. So for those of you who don't know, the games Grimace normally specializes in is, like, for example, Halo. He's really big in, like, every Halo. Destiny 2, more recently, Sea of Thieves. Mm-hmm. What's your take on streaming, like, each of those games? Or do you think each game kind of caters to, like, a different audience? Or do you think there's things that, like, a certain streamer needs to do in order to make this game kind of more tailored to them?
Yeah, I mean, different games definitely have very different audiences. People want to watch certain things, and I don't ever want to be one of those streamers that is just known for one game. Like, this is what he plays, and you sort of get typecast as a streamer for that game. Mm-hmm. Some streamers like that, some streamers want to just play Counter-Strike or whatever. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I have to move on. I have some staple games like Halo that I'll always spend time on and come back to, but for the most part, I like exploring new shooters as they come out, and then they sort of run their course, and I move on to different stuff. And I think it's important to be good at multiple games. I think that hones your skill a lot better. I mean, I'm a little bit of an older gamer compared to most, but I like that I have sort of built up some universal shooter skill that can be applied to pretty much any arena shooter, any console FPS. I can just sort of walk into and play pretty well. So, but it does depend a little bit on your audience and what people want to watch. I don't think people necessarily want to just watch me play the same stuff over and over again. Some games I don't enjoy playing as much, but I know that they're a lot more fun to watch. Like Fortnite's kind of one of them. So I've been playing more Fortnite lately, and I enjoy it. I don't enjoy it as much as other games, but I know that people like to watch it. They like to see how well I can do at it. So it is something you gotta, keep at the forefront of your mind when you pick and choose the games that you're gonna stream. But yeah, different people definitely like to watch different stuff for sure.
So actually, let's just drink a beer.
Oh, that is real good, actually.
I'm actually really enjoying this. I had a Ballast Point beer before, but I think it was vanilla or something.
Well, they have a regular Sculpin that's not grapefruit, and it's like the same image on the front and stuff. They actually serve that at Disneyland. That's always the beer I get at Disneyland. They serve Sculpin there.
So, you mentioned how for figuratively, if you ever were to get like banned on Twitch, you'd move to like YouTube or any other place. How do you feel about some people feeling that YouTubers, such as like Logan Paul, are moving to Twitch to see if they can capture an audience there?
I don't know. I know a lot of people are upset about that and just like want them to fuck off or whatever, but I don't really care. I try really hard not to pay that kind of attention to what other people are doing, because there's always going to be somebody out there who's doing better than you, unless you're Ninja. You're doing better than any three top streamers put together. He's doing better than
even like Dr. Disrespect.
Yeah, I'm very happy that he's where he is. By the way, I think he's a much, much, much better person to sort of carry that mantle as opposed to like, a Dr. Disrespect or a Shroud or a Summit or whoever. I think Ninja's a very ideal candidate to put on the top of the hierarchy there. So I'm glad that's happening to him. But yeah, as far as like big YouTubers wanting to come to Twitch, that's been happening for a couple years now. YouTube's having a lot of internal battles and struggles because for the longest time YouTube has been a very candid place where unpopular opinions can flourish with their own audience, and you sort of have this melting pot of people that have very, very, very different opinions when it comes to hot topics, especially political stuff. And that's always been an important part of YouTube, and that's been under fire lately. They're starting to ban channels that don't have the same political viewpoints or ideologies that Google as a company has, because Google as a company is very, very overly PC. Most tech companies are. Twitch is the same way, I think. But I think that scared a lot of people from YouTube, and they know. I don't remember if it was end of 2016 or the end of last year. I can't remember. But it was the fourth quarter of one of the last 2 years. I think it was last year. Twitch, has been growing quarter over quarter, year over year. And YouTube gaming as a platform went down 38% in that fourth quarter. And again, I don't remember if it was 2016 or 2017. I just remember in a quarter where YouTube saw a massive, decline in usage and popularity, Twitch still, grew. So it's definitely not something where live streaming in general is going down. It's just the grass is always greener, I think. I think you can get away with saying much more provocative stuff. The line is a lot further away from you before you get in trouble on YouTube as opposed to Twitch. On Twitch, you have to be real careful about the things you say because people, get offended, take it out of context, whatever. And I've seen people lose their channels over almost nothing. Something that certainly wouldn't get you in trouble on YouTube. So, but YouTubers have been coming over here. H3H3 Huge YouTube channel.
Started their podcast.
Yeah, they brought their podcast over here. I've seen other big YouTubers stream on Twitch over the years. I've seen Philip DeFranco stream here. You know, so we'll see what happens with the Logan Paul thing, but from what I know about the guy, I think he'll show up and he'll have a ton of people will come watch him from YouTube. But if he tries to, you know, he obviously is trying to do this because of the whole Ninja Drake stream that really got his attention, and it made, you know, national headlines and shit. So he's thinking to himself, well, I could get way more people. I could come play some stupid game. It probably is easy. I don't know if that's what's going through his head or not, but I feel like he probably thinks it's just playing video games and it's really easy, and he's going to find out that it's not that at all. The reason Ninja is so successful is because not only is he a really, really, really good streamer, he's a world-class gamer. You know, before he played tons of Battle Royale stuff, up until like the last 6-7 months, actually, he was a Halo pro. He was better than me. You know, he's been an established FPS prodigy for almost a decade now. So someone like you, like Logan Paul, shows up and he gets some rapper or whatever, and he's playing Fortnite with Kanye West or whatever the fuck he's gonna do. Yeah, a shit ton of people might come watch, but I don't see those people sticking around. I don't see that becoming something that he is going to dump tons of time into, because with YouTube and just vlogging in general, you're constantly shooting stuff. You're constantly like getting, you know, little excerpts of what you're doing, and then you splice it all together and you've got a 10-15 minute video. Streaming's not like that. Streaming's like you park your ass in a chair and you're there for 6 to 8 hours every day. And you know, I don't see somebody like Logan Paul being into that, you know? Like, I feel like I don't know. We'll see what happens. Again, time will tell, but I think it's good that he would bring lots of new eyes to Twitch. But how many of those eyes are not 12-year-olds? Probably a minority of them.
Yeah, I feel like what I've heard a lot more is that most of the audience who watches YouTube tends to be like very young, you know, childhood, early teenagers. But I feel compared to Twitch, it always feels like a more mature audience in a lot of different channels. Like for example, most of the people I met, I went to TwitchCon last year, and a lot of the people I met there who were like just viewers, there was a much more bigger like adult, you know, early adult, slightly older audience compared to when I went to like PAX East, and I feel like I saw more kids there.
Oh yeah. No, you go to events where, I mean, I'll never go to VidCon. That just looks like a nightmare. Every major creator on YouTube that I pay any attention to says, don't go to VidCon, it's fucking cancer, you know. But even the events that we go to where YouTube has a big presence, like a PAX or, you know, E3 or Gamescom or whatever. Gamescom in particular. I remember when we went to Gamescom and we went to the Swedish Comic-Con at Sweden. YouTube had a big like VidCon booth meet and greet section with some creators. And it's just lines around the block of fucking 10 to 14-year-old boys and girls. That was it, you know. The only adults there were the parents. And it says a lot about the platform, you know. Like, it is an incredibly popular platform when it comes to children with the internet. So, Twitch is not... If you're a kid on Twitch, you go into a channel and you start... I feel like people pick up pretty quickly that you're a kid because you start saying stuff that outs you as a kid. And you know, I always try to be nice when a kid ends up in my chat and starts saying things, because kids tend to have this entitled way of thinking and speaking, you know, like, hey, play this game. You know, they just will walk into your chat and just start making demands.
343 sucks.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll get like trolls and haters stuff too, but you can always tell a kid, because a kid will walk in and just type in the chat like, you know, only kill people with sniper this game, or, you know, use this class, or switch this game, play the officer class, and, you know, go play this playlist. You know, they just like they try to tell you what to do. You know, in their mind, they're not developed yet. They don't understand that the world doesn't revolve around them yet. And that's one of the things I like about Twitch. It's like it's not very conducive to kids, And so you don't have to deal with that shit very often, especially at events. You know, there's no kids at TwitchCon. You know, you don't see that shit there.
When I went to PAX East and I decided to go, of all places, to Markiplier's panel.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah, I bet it was nothing but kids.
yeah, it was like more than it was more than like probably 67% kids probably were who was in the audience. And that line, like I went I think like maybe 20-30 minutes before the panel, you know, because like, you know, just go a little bit early so you make sure you get in. But the line already was just way past like where the room was. I think even walking towards the room took about like 5 minutes of like moving in that line because of how many people there were. And I feel like YouTube's a better place for fandom kind of things, and I think a lot of kids latch onto that because it makes them feel like they're like starting to be a part of something, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to look up to people and idolize, and yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like Twitch has some of that. Like Twitch definitely has like a couple of people who are like, wow, like I'm part of this person's community, you know, I'm part of this stream team's community.
Yeah.
But I never feel like there's that kind of like obsession built into like in the Twitch, you know?
Yeah, I mean with the exception of some of the really big channels, yeah, I agree. Like it takes a pretty big channel on Twitch to have that sort of extreme adoration from people that follow or you know, like most people are, you know, again, it has to do with a maturity thing. You know, most people are grown-ups and understand that, you know, just because this person has, you know, 10,000 viewers doesn't mean that they're Brad Pitt, you know, like, but they sort of get the same treatment. They just get this in their head that this person is important because they think this person is important. And it's like a perpetuating thought process, and it spreads. And YouTube, it's much easier to have that magnified because you have so many damn kids on the platform. You know, you look at one of these channels that has lots of children, you know, like the Logan Paul channel, which has like, I don't know, like 14 or 15 million followers on it or something. And it's like, you have to understand that like at least 80% of that is people under the age of 16. You know, it's kids. And it's like, I think we're just now starting to see this paradigm shift in the way that big companies that essentially are the ones that buy the ad time and make YouTubers rich are going to start figuring out like, hey, this isn't the demographic. Like General Motors isn't going to want to put ads on a Logan Paul video when they realize that 95% of the people who are watching it don't even have a fucking driver's license. You know, like what's the point of that? They can't buy a car. And I think that's another big part of the reason that we've seen all these demonetization sprees, and like people are losing their ad revenue. YouTubers aren't making anywhere near as much. It's another reason YouTubers are coming over to Twitch. You know, they see the potential, and you know they want to get a more specific audience paying attention to them. You know, we're just not starting to see kind of like that ripple effect, I think.
Yeah, like especially since, for example, we mentioned H3, and I think one of the biggest reasons that they came over to Twitch was because their content was definitely mature, and it's starting to show more and more that YouTube doesn't necessarily want that kind of content, you know?
Yeah. At
the same time, it's really great for Twitch because like everybody can be themselves. You never really have to fear about talking about a specific thing. But for YouTube, it's just kind of alienates a lot of the creators. Like, oh no, I'm demonetized for the 10th time, but you know, it's I really don't know what step or direction YouTube can go that kind of brings these people back.
Well, they just launched that thing where you become a sponsor or whatever, and it's like subbing on Twitch, you know, people can sign up to just pay monthly to support the channel. I think that is going to make a lot of these YouTubers that have seen significant drops in what they're paid put their minds at ease a little bit, you know, because then they're like, well, okay, well, the people who want to support me have a very clear call to action now where they can do that. I don't have to run as many ads in my videos, which is going to make people happier. You know, it's moving away from an ad-driven model, and that's a good thing. That's going to make everyone happy except, you know, the big marketers. So that's one thing that they're doing. Another thing that they could do is start moving away from this, again, politically motivated punishment that they're doing for certain channels. Like there's that whole thing in the UK about channels that have anything to do with guns. Even the responsible ones are they're losing their channels. They're getting demonetized in their videos. YouTube's basically telling them to go away. So I hope they stop doing that, because that's really bad for the image, and that's bad for creators, and it's not fair to everyone. And so we'll see. But I watched a video recently. At the end of the day, I really don't think YouTube has great leadership. I really don't. I think it's a bunch of 50-year-old people that are completely out of touch with pop culture in general, and don't understand a lot of what they're doing and the influence that they have. And I watched a Casey Neistat interview the CFO of YouTube. I forget the guy's name, but he had never given an interview before. And this was like, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. It was in January, I think, sometime. And Casey Neistat, who's a big YouTuber, had the CFO of YouTube come to his, not his house, but his like little warehouse where he makes his videos and stuff. And sit down and ask him some questions, because a lot of YouTubers were concerned at the time about the, Adpocalypse 2.0 or whatever. He sits the CFO down of YouTube. Again, this guy, the CFO, like he reports directly to the CEO. He's about as high as you can go on the ladder. He sits down, and Casey Neistat, the first thing he says to him is like, this is exciting. Thanks for doing this. And he's like, yeah, I've never done an interview before or whatever. And he's like, have you ever done a YouTube video? He's like, nope, this is my first YouTube video. And I was just like, what? I mean, I know you're a fucking CFO, all right? And you're not going to mess with creating, but fucking first YouTube video ever?
Yeah, that's insane.
Are you fucking kidding me? Like, what in the hell?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, he's a financial officer. He analyzes revenue streams and bottom lines and whatever. I get it, but fuck me, dude.
Yeah.
At least make something on the, like, you didn't just get hired straight into that,
Yeah.
You had to have been a part of YouTube before you were CFO, and even if you weren't, it's like, I couldn't believe that. I couldn't even watch the rest of the interview. I got like 2 minutes in after that, and his answers were so bullshit, and they were so vague, He answered every question, but didn't actually answer it, Danced around every hard-hitting point. And it just put such a bad taste in my mouth. That's one thing that Twitch really does right. You can watch somebody like DJ Wheat at TwitchCon playing games against people. Oh, I'm good for now, thanks.
Okay.
But, the people who are in power at the top of the chain at Twitch, I feel like at least most of them are gamers, serious gamers, that have been around for a while and understand the content, they understand, the medium pretty well, and I just couldn't believe that. CFO of YouTube never made a YouTube video before.
To really be like part of like a creating platform, I feel like you definitely need to at least get involved somewhat. At least watch a bunch of videos yourself. At least even try to
how are you gonna relate?
Yeah.
How are you going to relate to all your creators, man? Like, how are you going to sit there?
And I feel like they just kind of make them into, numbers, It's not people's lives. It's not their work. It's, how much money they're making and or how big their channel's getting, And I think people, when they look at that, especially as a business, they kind of lose touch. But I feel that definitely Twitch doesn't do that. I've seen one of the people in charge of Twitch get involved, especially the Twitter community and listening to them, and he's always at TwitchCon listening to all of them, But I feel like, has the CFO of YouTube ever probably been to VidCon? Probably not,
Well, if he has, he wasn't on the floor, He might have walked out on some stage and introduced somebody or some shit, It's like, dude, you gotta understand your product. You gotta understand your creators. You gotta. I just couldn't believe that. I thought that was really embarrassing on his part.
Yeah, I mean it is. You definitely you never want to lose touch, no matter in what position you're in with especially what you're working for. Even if you're not working for a creating company, you want to know what it's about, what it's doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of that, a lot of people get kind of mad at 343 and like Bungie for not exactly listening to them and like what they're asking for as far as the games and like, oh, why don't you guys do this? How do you feel about that? Because I know you've played Halo ever since it's probably released.
Yeah, but that's not just a Halo thing. That's just a gamer thing in general nowadays. I feel like it's gotten a lot worse. I feel like, I don't know. I consider myself very lucky to be alive during this time as a gamer because we've seen such crazy leaps in technology that go hand in hand with the gaming experience. You know, graphics are better than they've ever been. CPU power is better than it's ever been. And, you know, everything's better than it's ever been. And it just every year it gets better. And we've seen that on, you know, a pretty steady rise since, you know, the very first gaming systems like 40 years ago or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, for me, I don't understand the gripe, you know, like, yeah, when a studio shits out a bad game, they deserve to be flamed into oblivion. I completely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's certain practices that I think are cash grabs that should go, like pre-orders and shit, you know, like, I think DLC in general is something that has a lot of potential because games nowadays are built on a foundation that has a lot of room for expansion. So you can deliver a game to somebody and then keep selling them content that, you know, attaches to that game. And, you know, like I feel like Borderlands 2 did that very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish more companies took that approach in terms of the level of content and the quality of it. Most companies don't, though. Most companies use it as a way to smash your wallet every few months.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, gamers are speaking out about that. They're very upset about it, but I do feel like they make way too big a deal out of it.
Mm.
It's like all you have to do is not buy the game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go after a publisher that, you know, puts out a dozen games a year because one of them didn't sit right with you. I can't stand that. I feel like gamers are more entitled than they've ever been.
Mm.
They have all these stupid expectations, like a $60 game is meant to change their life or some shit, you know, like, you know, every game that comes out is like, why isn't this the best game I've ever played? When I pay $60, I expect, you know, it's like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
You spend $60 on a pair of jeans, you know, like, who cares? Like, if they don't fit, you fucking take them back, or, you know, you whip your ass into shape so that they do fit.
Mm-hmm.
You wear them for a year or two and you move on. It's like, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always looked at it that way. You know, some games last longer than others, some don't. You know, some you get bored of after 6 months, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're having fun in the meantime and you explore everything about the game. The whole Star Wars Battlefront thing just drove me nuts.
Oh yeah, you were one of the only people I knew that actually gave the game like a big chance.
Yeah, well, and there was no way I wasn't going to because I liked the last one. I went to all the events for the year leading up to its launch. I saw all the early stuff, and I was really impressed with it. Still am. Still think it's the best looking game I've ever seen. I mean, they just killed it with that Frostbite engine. I can't believe how good it looks. But
It's a really fun game.
yeah, it's fantastic. I just played it the other night, and I had a blast. You know, I'm still playing it.
Is that a pun?
Yeah, I had a blast playing Blast. But, you know, you look at a situation like that where everyone just completely lost their shit.
Yeah.
And just raked EA over the coal to the point where they saw stocks dip. You know, like, that's how bad it was. Because of this one game that wasn't even out yet. And they had all these plans to do the typical loot box thing that every game does, you know.
Overwatch has it.
Overwatch, yeah, like, you know, most obviously is Call of Duty. Call of Duty has pretty much the exact same progression system where it's, you know, you have these loot boxes and you can buy them. Every game does this, and they've been doing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone flipped out on Reddit, and then in response to it, within 24 hours of this, you know, EA goes and reduces the progression by 75%. They disable microtransactions in game, so you can't buy loot crates at all. This is all done like before the game even comes out. And it wasn't enough. People just didn't care. Because at the end of the day, people don't want a game to be exactly the way they want it to be. They just want to be fucking pissed about something. They just want to dump on a game because it makes them feel good about themselves or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sentiment you see in all aspects of society nowadays. It's amplified more than ever. Everybody thinks that the world owes them something. Everybody's been coddled, and nobody in this generation has really faced any true turmoil for the most part. Like, we've never had any major, economic crisis that threatens our way of life. We haven't had any world wars. We haven't had any mass epidemics or diseases. It's been 60 years since we've faced anything like that as a society.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that trickle-down effect, is really hard to deal with when you're dealing with gamers, because gamers are some of the most vocal people on the planet when it comes to the internet anyway. They'll hit you on every forum. They'll hit you on every social media. They'll complain. They're diehard and loyal and eager to spend, but they're also rage nerds, like they're going to fucking lose their shit over the dumbest thing and feel justified in doing so, and then they'll go find a subreddit that turns into a giant circle jerk of confirmation bias where everyone's mad. I'm mad. You're mad? Let's both be mad. Fuck yeah, this is fun. Fuck EA. Everyone loves... People are addicted to outrage these days.
Yeah, there's a large outrage culture is basically what it's called,
It is.
Everybody becomes like a...
Everyone's trying to get outraged, and it's usually on behalf of someone else. It's usually not even something that they're actually personally outraged over.
And I feel like another big complaint that I saw from people, especially gamers, was that people who didn't even really play games like Star Wars or anything like that were hopping onto this rage against EA. Just to kind of yeah, because it's fun. It made you feel like you're a real gamer because you're so offended by this. Like, I'm upset at them, and that validates me as a gamer because, only the most hardcore gamers are gonna pick up on this and be outraged. There's a lot of reasons for people to jump on the hate train. Mm-hmm. It's fun. It's easy. Makes you feel good about yourself. Whatever. It's just. I'm usually very skeptic to do stuff like that. I will rake a company over the coals publicly if they do something stupid that I don't like the way Bungie, didn't give us 60 FPS on a console version of Destiny 2. Like, that really bothered me, but I didn't let it go to my head. I didn't let it consume me to the point where I wasn't going to buy the game, because they still did that for PC, and I can play it on PC with a controller. So it doesn't really affect me at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I'm able to look at that and say, okay, well, they made this decision that fucking sucks and pissed me off, but I can get around it. If people had done the same with Battlefront, they would have realized that, oh man, all the shit we were mad about actually never made it into the game. Mm-hmm. Not for launch anyway. So, I just wish people would second guess themselves a little bit before they grab their pitchforks. And it's especially great now because games are able to do something that they weren't able to do before. Like, if you're mad about something, the developers have the ability to fix this even after the game's out. Yeah. Like Overwatch has fixed tons of things. Halo has fixed tons of things. Destiny is fixing tons of things. Yeah. And I feel like I feel like it's really great that they have the ability to do this, but I feel like it's also it also has a few disadvantages because they always have to hear the new complaint, Yeah. And it's never thank you so much for fixing this. Every person that complains about something goes on to the next thing. Oh, why do I die from a grenade and or why this, why that? But it just keeps going,
Yeah, it is. So I do my best to be an advocate of patience and rationality when it comes to that sort of thing. Don't fucking lose your shit. Don't talk shit about a studio when you're nothing but a dude with an Xbox who's never made a fucking game in his life. Mm-hmm. I've gone to these studios. I've met the people that make these games. I've been to 343. Those people work their asses off just trying to give us everything we want. And it's never going to make everyone happy. There's always going to be at least one person that's unhappy with every single decision. And And it doesn't mean you can't hold their feet to the fire when they fuck up. You absolutely can and should.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, at least get over it. You know, at least recognize the good too.
Yeah.
Life's too short to be pissed off about every little nuance and overanalyze and pick apart every little thing, especially when you didn't even have a fucking hand in making it.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you to criticize, really? Like, if you don't like it, don't play it. And, you know, don't go fucking on some crusade to destroy the game's reputation.
Yeah. I mean, do you really want, like, Halo 5 complainer on your tombstone?
Yeah. Hated every game before everyone else did. That's my claim to fame. I hated Halo before anyone hated Halo.
Yeah. Fuck 343.
Yeah, 343 definitely took Halo in a very different direction, but it was the right direction.
I love it, honestly. Like the new mobilities, like I feel like it's so much more balanced than Reach, you know?
Yeah. Well, they wanted to put a very strong emphasis on the competitive nature of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Bungie Halo was always a great foundation for Halo, but the competitive settings were never, you know, map default. It was never out of the box, you know? Like in Halo 2, you know, the competitive settings where you start with BR, radar's turned off, you know, like up until 2006 there were duels on the map, but 2006, 2007, no duels, no plasma pistol, no dual SMGs. That's not skillful. That's random, you know, and it doesn't really belong in a competitive environment. So, you know, Bungie Halo's always had that potential, but you had to tweak it quite a bit to get it into competitive, and that presented a problem in the long run because, you know, people would be watching MLG Halo 3 and they'd be like, you know, there's a custom power-up for overshield, and why isn't it just the regular overshield? You know, they're like, why are the weapons in different spots? You know, the rockets drop here instead of the other hall. And why is there a box here? You know, why are they moving faster? Because the run speed for competitive Halo 3 was 110%. And they made it that way so that you could make certain jumps, you know, like, and it opened up the map a little bit more, and it made it so when you strafe, it actually dodged bullets a little better. They took damage off the BR, so where, like in the Halo 3 BR, I think for map default, it only took 10 bullets out of the BR to kill someone. So that's, you had to shoot 4 times, but you didn't have to hit all the bullets. Whereas it was, that's right, I think it was 10 bullets. Whereas in MLG, it was 11. You had to hit more shots, even though it's a four shot in both cases. You had to land more bullets. So it was just like there are little things like that we had to change to turn Bungie's Halo into the competitive game it needed to be for circuits. And 343 wanted to change that. They wanted to take it to where, you know, somebody who's brand new to Halo and has played Halo 5 and gone into Team Arena, they can pull up the HCS finals and the pros are playing the exact same version of the game that they've always played. Same weapons, same maps, same game types. Everything is the same. They wanted it competitive out of the box because that's the way League of Legends is. I think they took a lot of cues from some of the more successful competitive games and realized that, hey, competitive game types shouldn't be some crazy, heavily modified overhaul of what the game is out of the box. It should be as close to out of the box as possible. And I like that. I think they made the right choice. I think Halo is just struggling because people have moved on to other types of games, and Halo 5 is a great fucking game.
Yeah. I love playing it, honestly. I even like the campaign, and a lot of people complained about what direction it went, you know, but
yeah,
I thought it was really fun. Like, getting used to using all of those abilities throughout the campaign, seeing the differences between the new Spartans, which you play in multiplayer, and then how John, you know, the person who's been Master Chief throughout the entire series deals with all of these new things, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought it's like that was a really interesting introduction, you know?
Yeah. No, I like that they brought out a second protagonist with Locke and kind of pitted them against each other. I personally felt like the marketing for Halo 5 for the campaign was a little misleading. It made it seem like you're going to have to choose one or the other, or, you know, like one of them was going to die. Spoiler, neither of them die. Nothing really changes, you know. So it's like I never was a guy that played the Halos for the campaign, so it didn't really matter to me what they did with it. But as far as my opinion on it, I just hope, I was glad to see Nathan Fillion reprising his role
Oh,
as
yeah.
Buck, who's now a Spartan, not just an ODST.
It's so cool.
That is really cool that they got him in there.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he's like a key character in the Halo and Destiny universe now. That's really
Yeah,
funny, actually.
because he's Cade 6.
Yeah. But I liked what they did with it. I thought they did a great job with it, and I just hope for this next Halo, I just hope they make it bigger than it's ever been. I hope they make a campaign that takes at least 20 hours to beat, Like, I really do. I hope they just give us 5 chapters for the campaign, and each of them are like 4 or 5 hours long, you know?
I mean, that'd be great.
Something just really epic that really reels in the people that love that single player immersive experience. You look at games like Witcher 3 or any of the Souls games where the difficulty level is insane. It takes you forever to beat stuff. It takes you forever to get through the game and progress, and it's an extremely uphill battle. I wish they'd make Halo like that. I feel like if they did, they'd get a lot of people to come back to the franchise for the single player experience, because 343 does a great job with multiplayer and competitiveness.
Definitely.
But that's a minority. The casuals don't play competitive.
Yeah.
And they don't really care which teams are on the circuit and what's going on there. So that's something Bungie always did really, really well. As much as I hated Reach, that was far and away the best campaign.
The story was...
It was the most emotionally gripping video game campaign I've ever played.
I cried when Noble 6 died.
I looked at that and I was like, man, that's, they killed it with that. And that's Bungie, Which makes it kind of weird that the story in Destiny is so fucking flat.
Right?
I'm still struggling to understand why Destiny 1 and 2
have just weakest stories.
Yeah, the single player narrative is just nothing compared to what they did with their Halos. Yeah. So it's interesting.
And I feel like I've heard that a lot of the writers who wrote for like Bungie's Halo are still a part of Bungie, right?
Some of them, like when Bungie split off to go, join Activision and start working on Destiny. About, I think, like a third of them stayed behind and combined with a bunch more new people to form 343. And that was in 2010, I believe, 2010 or 2011, early 2011 it might have been. It's interesting. I think it's just because the narrative of Bungie's Halo always revolved around a protagonist that you really cared about. And had some emotional connection to. People love fucking Master Chief. They don't love fucking him. They fucking love him. But, in Reach, they kind of took the opposite route where instead of having this really brash, aggressive alpha male dude, they sort of had the quiet Noble 6 who just sort of let his work do the talking,
Or the Ghost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Reach,
Oh.
Reach, they did a great job with campaign, but they always had somebody that, you cared about. In Destiny, it's like you customize your Guardian a million different ways to where they can't even make a centralized story around it. It doesn't matter. They can't talk about how you're a human who had this done to you when you were a kid and you fight for this reason. No, you're like a robot, or you're an Awoken, and you're a guy, or you're a girl, and you have this armor, or that armor, or this ability, or this subclass, so I feel like that's sort of where the single-player stuff kind of gets lost. You can't really root for someone if the story is that generalized that it has to account for 3 different classes of people, and then 3 different subclasses beyond that. So I think that's probably why. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, though, because, I mean, even if, you could, customize your armor and everything in Halo Reach, you still were like, this is my character, like he's an integral part of the story.
Yeah.
But you don't really get that feeling, when in Destiny games.
No, you don't. It's just sort of going through the motions, and the raids are great, but the story mode is just sort of meh. Who cares? I just want this gun.
Yeah, honestly.
I just got to finish this bounty. I don't really give a shit.
I just need to make it to level 20.
Yeah.
That's all I need. I can't really do raids until I do that, so I might as well play the campaign.
Yep.
Which, I mean, it's cool and all that they have raids and, like, ways to keep the people in, but it's, like, I feel like it's hard to build different communities for that. Like, for example, Halo Halo has like the casual community, the really great MLG community, like the World Championships, things like that. And like as much as Destiny tries to do that, I'm not really sure how long it's going to take for them to even like get like a loose grip on it, you know?
Well, Destiny will never be a competitive game. It'll never be an esports game. And Bungie wants it that way. That's by design. Bungie hated the MLG community for Halo. They hated it. And, you know, and they'll never admit that publicly. They'll never talk about anything like that, but I saw it. You know, I saw it firsthand. And it's sort of deserved because the competitive community is the exact opposite of the people that made Halo back then.
Mm-hmm.
People that made Halo back then are people you'd call neckbeards nowadays. You know, like just laid back guys who, you know, sort of get stomped on when it comes to aggressive competitive stuff, you know, because they're just not, you know, they're not the type of dudes that are going to tear your throat out. They're not these alpha male dudes that are super aggressive. They're just nerds. They're sci-fi loving nerds.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think when they made Halo, they set out to make a game that would turn into this crazy competitive tournament title, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They were happy with that at first, but then they started coming to the MLG events and, you know, rubbing shoulders with some of these competitive types, and it was awful. I remember seeing, you know, like a crew of Bungie designers sit down. It was the very last Halo 2 event in 2007 in Vegas. And they were just playing people just for fun. And these competitive dickheads were sitting down and just like, Bungie's always been shitty at Halo. It's kind of an ongoing joke.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they never brought in crazy professional testers. That's one of the first things 343 did is they brought in former pros and made their pro team so that they would have pro players. Bungie never did shit like that. They tested it amongst themselves and they had testers, but all their testers were incredibly casual players.
Mm-hmm.
So when they would actually play it against MLG players, they'd get fucking destroyed. And like you'd see MLG, like some of these dumbasses at MLG events that were young kids and just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
They would stand up after a game and like taunt them, like, "What the fuck? Didn't you make this game? Well, you're fucking terrible at." You know, they would talk a bunch of shit because that's what it's like at a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just, you know, for the most part, they were mortified by that. They hated that. They're like, "What a bunch of assholes," you know. And I remember when button glitches in Halo 2 first started to surface about a year after the game launched, and you could BXR people, you could use BXB to double whack somebody, you know, you could double shot by putting RRX and get your BR to like shoot 6 bullets instead of 3. There were all these little things you could do as like button combos, and they were unintentional obviously, but they enhanced the game from a skill gap because they weren't easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bungie was pissed about that at first. You know, people come onto their forums and be like, "This guy like BXR'd me or whatever. It was bullshit." And I saw Bungie staff members coming into the forums and be like, "If you see somebody BXRing, feel free to use the report issue." They wanted people using button glitches that made it into Halo 2 initially to be reported for cheating. They wanted to treat it the same way. So, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is Bungie doesn't want Destiny to ever have to deal with shit like this again. They want to stay casual. And that's why we never saw private matches in the first Destiny until it was 3 years old. It was like the last thing that made it into the game. And that's why there's still no private matches in Destiny 2. They've told us they're going to give them to us now. But you'll never see Bungie try to get Destiny 2 to become some sort of competitive title where people play for money in a tournament, a tournament setting. It's just, they hate that. They absolutely hate that. It's one of the reasons they walked away from Halo. So, food for thought.
So, you used to be part of the MLG community, right? Like, you used to...
Yeah.
So, what made you want to kind of go away from that? Because, I mean, you still know a lot of the MLG players. You still, play really competitively. But do you ever see yourself going back into, like, the MLG community, or...?
Probably not. I mean, not in a serious way. I haven't been to an MLG event since Halo 3. And now that Halo is back with MLG, there's a good chance I'm going to the World Championship in a few weeks up in Seattle, which I'm pretty sure is an MLG sanctioned event. I don't know actually. It's HCS, but I don't know. Like it was a fun scene while it lasted, and the last time I went to an MLG event, they were an independent company. Now they're owned by Activision Blizzard, so it's sort of turned into something different than it always was.
Mm.
But you know, I wouldn't be opposed to it. If I ever went to an MLG event to compete again, it would definitely not be a serious thing and just be for fun.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I enjoyed that time. I liked those events. I loved those events, actually. They were a lot of fun. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, MLG did turn their back on Halo, and that was a big part of the reason that the Halo scene declined. Halo 4 wasn't loved by most people, but it was definitely a big step in the right direction from Reach, and that game definitely had the competitive potential. It could have been a tournament game. It could have been run on the MLG circuit for at least a year or two,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would have gone headfirst into Halo 5. But you know, they decided to turn their back on the franchise and move on to other stuff that was more popular, and that's something that I'll probably never forgive them for, like most people who were around in the early years, because Halo is why MLG exists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it put them on the map. When Halo was at its peak, they did nothing but benefit from that. And so, you know, a few years later, after Bungie shit out Halo Reach and we had a crap game, you know, 343 did everything they could to get another Halo out there as fast as they could. That's the only time in Halo history where there was only 2 years between titles. You know, Reach came out in 2010, Halo 4 came out end of 2012, and it was very much, you know, an homage to the older styles. But, you know, MLG decided to say, fuck it. And now they're kind of coming back. You know, Halo 5 has been really good. It's brought a lot of people back to the fold. And now MLG obviously wants a piece of that again.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. That's not really the same league it was when I went to my last event. So it's hard to say how I feel about it.
Mm.
I kind of just, you know, say whatever. Fuck it. I don't even really care who runs the tournaments anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of inconsequential.
I feel that. Do you think I can try one of those?
I have one, dude.
I'm really interested. Thank you so much.
Yup.
Oh, it's still cold.
It's good, though. I like it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Actually.
It's a tropical torpedo in your mouth.
This is definitely an explosion from the torpedo going on. That's for sure.
Yup. It's best if you gargle it.
Yeah, you know, gotta like...
Yeah.
Gotta cause like an infrastructure shatter within your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
All your teeth will be gone.
Yep. I think it whitens your teeth a little bit, actually, too. There's lots of protein in it.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah. There's a lot of metal. Strength in your teeth.
Yup.
Recently, there have been a lot of like updates to Twitch's TOS, and they've started, you know, cracking down more on like people who were like doing really like inappropriate things to get more viewers, to get more subs, things like that. And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about them cracking down on more creators and streamers?
I mean, it's something that it's hard to speak about that, because at the end of the day, I have my opinions and Twitch has theirs, and they run Twitch, not me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if it was up to me, I would do things very differently than the way they do it now. But I'm not in any place to dictate that, and I have to respect the rules that they make and the things that they put in place, and I fully intend to do that, especially now that I'm a partnered channel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I take a lot of pride in that, and I want to make sure that I represent Twitch the way that I'm supposed to, because I feel like people have this urge inside them to try and tell Twitch how to run their channel, and that's inherently narcissistic. That's inherently entitled, and I catch myself doing that sometimes. You know, you'll go get on Reddit and you look at the live stream fail sub. You start seeing all these crazy things that big channels do and supposedly get away with or whatever, you know, and you get all riled up. You're like, what the fuck, you know, like why the fuck isn't this chick banned or something, you know? And it's really easy to fall into that hole of just being angry and upset. And at the end of the day, it's like, it doesn't fucking matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what someone else does. You know, I care about what I do, and I try really hard when I get stuck in a rut like that, where I'm focused on something someone else who is bigger than me is doing that I don't think they should be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I try to make sure that I remind myself, it's like, that's them. Focus on me. You know, nothing that they're doing is going to keep me from succeeding. Only things that I do will keep me from succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
And if you turn into this, you know, super negative person who's doing nothing but paying attention to what other people are doing, that's only gonna inhibit your own success.
Mm.
So this new TOS, I feel like, was aimed at two sides, you know, two very different sides that are kind of feuding. It was aimed at the girls who are consistently accused of sexually provocative content that doesn't belong on Twitch,
Mm-hmm.
and the people who lash out at girls who do sexually provocative content that isn't supposed to be on Twitch.
Mm.
You know, they tried to take a shot across both bows, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
say, girls who are doing this stuff, you can't do this stuff. You know, like, you know, dress a little nicer, be a little more modest, work with us here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the people who are, you know, calling for the head of all these channels of chicks in the IRL section, they're like, that's harassment, you can't do that, you know. And they brought out this rule where context of everything you say matters, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't just, so if I say a word that Twitch doesn't like, but there's different ways I could have meant it, they're going to at least try to understand the way I meant it before they punish, you know. So it is what it is. So like if I say something along the lines of, you know, fuck the people who hate titty streamers, and they're like, you said titty streamers, that's fucking out, you know, like, even though I'm on the other side and the context was not derogatory towards this, it was derogatory towards people who use a term like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's the line that Twitch is trying to draw in the sand, and I can respect that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought out the rule where you know, stuff you say and do outside the platform can you know, influence punishment or whatever when it comes to your channel. So if you say something egregious on Twitter, you know, death to all Jews or whatever, you know, like you say something insane,
Mm-hmm.
and you mean it, you know, and it's not a joke, then it can hurt your channel. And I'm fine with that, you know, as long as they don't take that too far, you know. And it remains to be seen. I would be, I'll be completely honest, if I was not a partner channel, I'd be a lot more worried about this. Now that I am a partner channel, I have the benefit of a partnership manager who, you know, ultimately makes that call for me. It's not some random person at Twitch who sees reports on my channel or something. Like if someone was to get mad at me for something I said on Facebook or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then they report my channel and screen cap what I said and put it out of context, you know, if you're just a regular channel or maybe an affiliate, you know, you don't know the person that's going to see those reports, and it might hit them the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
They might not care enough to look into the context. Who knows? Like, if I wasn't a partner, I would be worried about something like that happening, because everybody has controversial opinions, and I certainly have mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that my partnership manager will see these reports, understand what I meant, and be like, yeah, this is fucking stupid. I mean, we're not going to, you know, punish Zach's channel for anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's confused about the context, he'll call me, and I'll tell him, well, yeah, I didn't mean that. I meant this, you know, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And clarify things. So, you know, for me, it doesn't really matter too much. I'm just happy that Twitch is at least acknowledging these things that people are upset about and making some changes and trying to roll them out. And I hope both sides of the war that they're trying to, you know, dip their feet in, make changes. I hope people stop being so damn fucking aggressive and crazy and harassing channels of chicks and, you know, calling people titty streamers and shooting their mouths off. You know, Lindsay sees stuff like that all the time, even though she's the farthest thing from a girl like that. And I hope the girls that, you know, abuse the vagueness of of the dress code and things like that, you know, like I hope they make changes too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because both those things would make Twitch a much better fucking place to be. So that's kind of my stance on it.
Mm.
At the end of the day, though, nothing that they change really affects me. So, because I don't hang cleavage in a webcam, and I don't quote unquote slut shame. So.
I think we should bring in dude cleavage. I think that'd make it fair.
I would if I could. Not supposed to. Gotta respect the rules.
Oh, right.
I mean, I know I got a nice body, but might be too good for Twitch.
Yeah.
So.
I think the beer is starting to interact with my, like, thought process.
It's tough, isn't it?
I don't know how you do it.
People think I just get shit-faced.
For those of you who don't know, Grimace is a professional drinker.
It is tough, man. You gotta try and you gotta keep the cognitive abilities rolling, even though you're pounding drinks. It's not as easy as people think.
Yeah, I like 3-4 in, I'm just like, yep. And that's all that'll come out of me if anyone asks me anything, you know?
Yeah.
So what made you want to bring... So it's definitely a large part of your branding, you know? Like, your subs are alcoholics.
Yep.
And so what made you want to kind of go in that direction?
I don't know, it just sort of turned out that way. Like, I remember before I was streaming full-time, before I was streaming at all, a few years ago, you know, Lindsay was streaming, and someone, I think it was Foss or Rolling Rock or somebody, donated like $1,000. And we were like, Jesus Christ, you know, like that was the first time anything like that had ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt compelled to do something crazy in return, you know, like I just like, what do you do? Somebody hands you that kind of money, and you're just, I don't know, I just felt an overwhelming sense of obligation to earn that money. Like, I don't know, like, so I had that. So there's that boot. This is the original one right here. Bro, it's got everyone's name on it who subbed the first day.
My name's on it.
Yeah, there it is right there.
Hey.
Number 37.
Nice. That was a great day.
Yeah. So like, you know, I had those boots for a while, since, you know, my bachelor days in my 20s. And, you know, after that movie Beer Fest came out, those things ended up in stores in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, whatever it was. And I remember seeing them at Spencer's and like, that's hilarious. And so we had bought them, and I had just sort of had them over the years, and I'd never tried to chug one, ever. I don't even know why I even attempted it that night. I think I'd already been drinking, and I was like, I'm going to fucking chug this beer for Fost or whoever. And so, you know, I dumped a few beers in it, went in there and fucking chugged the whole thing just to see if I could do it, you know. Which in hindsight was probably a really bad idea. Because if I had failed or thrown up or anything like that, Lindsay would have lost her channel, you know. Like, thank God it worked. Because it turns out that's not exactly an easy thing to do for most people.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that, and I walk out, and 15 minutes later, Lindsay comes out, and she's like, he did another 1,000, you know? Like, that's the impression that it made.
That's crazy.
Like, you know, I'm pretty sure it was Foss. I honestly don't remember who it was, but whoever it was donated another $1,000 because they loved it so much. And, you know, so I'm like, all right, give me like 30 minutes, you know, like, and I went and I did it again. And it was actually easier the second time because I was a little more confident and was like, yeah, I can do this. I just did it, you know? And so, I don't know, that's sort of when the idea of streaming myself became a viable thing, you know? I'm like, man, maybe I should just do my own channel and do my own stuff like this. And so, you know, within a month or two, that's what I was doing. I started my own channel. Or at least I had the channel for a while, but I started streaming on it full time, and that was scary, you know, quitting my job and walking out into that world. Thankfully, Lindsay was already pretty established, so we didn't really have to worry too much if I didn't make any money, if I didn't have any success. I could always just go back to work, and it wasn't a big deal. But thankfully it was, you know. That first week, I was welcomed with open arms. A lot of people who watched Lindsay and knew me from there came over and started, you know, became regulars immediately, and it just went from there. And, you know, just drinking and playing games just was a staple of the stream from day one. And it was just funny, you know, people would walk in and just sort of became a theme. And it was funny, like the early days, anytime somebody did $100, I would do a boot. Obviously now I can't do that now. That's not even close to sustainable. But I started streaming, I think August 22nd or 23rd or something like that. It was right before September 1st of 2015 was when I first started streaming. And in that first week, I did like fucking 10 boots or something like that, you know, like some crazy number. I remember by the end of the year, in that first 3 months, I would drink like 60 boots or something like that.
Whoa.
Something crazy like that.
That's crazy.
And it was fun and it was exciting, and I started gaining weight and things got weird, you know, and I had to tone it down almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and to this day, the boot is still something that I'll bust out once in a while, but, you know, only on rare occasions. I can't be chugging boots every day. You know, I don't really I want to live past the age of 45, so. But
chugging boots is not the way to do that.
It's not. You know, once in a while is fine. Now I try to do, once a month I'll do the boot of the month thing where, you know, my top donator of the month, I'll buy a boot, fill it up, dedicate it to him, drink it usually from the bar here.
Rue's getting his.
Yeah. Yeah. Sending one to Rue for last month. And so I try to do it at least once a month. Or if something crazy happens, you know, like if somebody donates some crazy money or some shit like that, I'll do it. But other than that, I just try to drink and chill and not get too fucked up. That first year or so of streaming, I really had to dial in how drunk I'm going to allow myself to get on stream, because there is a line, everyone's got it, and I've crossed it on stream more than once. Never to the point of something extreme. Yeah, I've never like blacked out or puked or anything like that, but I've gotten close. Gotten pretty close. Too close. So I try to be careful, especially now that I'm partnered and I'm on, you know, a professional stream team, and, you know, it's not just fun and games anymore. It's a legitimate career for me now, and so I can still have fun, but within reason.
Yeah.
Within reason. But yeah, I mean, Alcoholics was always going to be what I called subs, you know. I was going to call them either Alcoholics or bootleggers. One of the two. It's going to be alcohol related no matter what.
Both of those are great.
Yeah, it's like, how do you choose? But then I was like, well, people who follow can be drunk. People who sub can have a full-on drinking problem, you know.
I definitely have one.
So I figured that was the way to go, and so far I'm good with it. But no, it's been great, and you know, here I am 2 years later, and we just hit 5,000 follows on the channel, which is, you know, not crazy by any means. That's not like superstar status or anything like that, but it's fun to think about the fact that the channel has been growing exponentially. You know, when I first started, I almost overnight, from Lindsay's channel and hosts and stuff like that, I had like, I don't know, 400 or 500 followers. So that gave me a real nice kickstart. And then that first year, I made it from 500-600 up to, I think, 1,000. The second full year, I went from 1,000 to a little over 2,000. And then here I am, not even a year later, and we've gone from like, you know, 2,500 to 5,000. So it's growing at an increasing rate and exponentially rising. And so who knows, you know, a year from now I could have 10,000, 15,000. Like, it's exciting. So I'm just going to keep drinking and keep shooting people.
Hell yeah.
Apparently that's a good thing that people like to see.
I mean, I definitely, so I was always a big fan of Lindsay, right? Like, knowing that her and a bunch of other people I loved, and especially while I was going to PAX East to work for this indie gaming company known as Boom Zap. I've talked about them on PGP before. I came there, but when I got there, I met you, and then
yeah, I think I remember that actually.
And then I still have that picture. I gotta show it to you later.
What event was that?
That was PAX East.
Okay.
Last March.
Yeah.
It was great. We got like super drunk and like made snow angels in the snow.
That's right. We did.
And it was like since then, I just started watching you, and then I haven't stopped.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for me because when I first met Lindsay, she obviously, had a lot of potential to, have a huge social media following, like a really hot chick who does cosplay, and she's, got really established friends and stuff who she ends up in pictures with. And so, like, when I first met her, I think a month after I met Lindsay, she started her Facebook page. And almost overnight it had 10,000 follows,
Wow.
and it just, because it's like, and it just grew from there.
Yeah, like I knew about Lindsay in like middle school.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where I recognized the potential really early on, and because she was such a big gamer, I mean, she games as much as I do, if not more. When we first got together and started living together, I was like, you should stream on Twitch, and this is back in like early 2013 or something like that, like 5 years ago, and I think it was like by the end of 2013, early 2014-ish is when she started streaming, and I just sort of like guided her down that path. I sort of always wanted to be the guy in the background, just sort of guiding her and helping her navigate through these social media platforms. When she first started selling prints, I was the guy, rolling them into tubes and mailing them and, like shit like that. So I wasn't sure what people would think if they were following her and then they found out about me. I really wasn't sure if they would be like, oh, fuck this guy, I just want to look at this hot chick. Why am I looking at this fucking guy? So, and I'd go to events and I'd start meeting people that had found her and liked her stuff. And I just wanted to make sure that they knew, like, I'm just here to be your pal. I'm not here to like say, don't look at my wife or anything like that. Fucking, I can appreciate a hot chick as well as anybody. So it was one of those things where I was a little nervous at first. So I really tried to lead off with the bro aspect, and that's a big part of the reason that, on stream I like to torment Lindsay. I like to bug her, and I like
Linda.
Yeah, exactly, because that sort of breaks the tension, I feel like. Of guys that are maybe there and didn't know she was, dating someone or married or whatever, that might feel a little weird once they're confronted with, the husband that's there, I want to make sure I'm like, it's cool, man, let's make fun of her together, like, it just sort of breaks the ice. And so I've always tried to, like, lead off with that and make sure that people know it's like, I don't care if you look at hot pictures of my wife. I mean, I do too. Like, everybody does. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. One of my good friends, he has this mantra of like people he's with, and basically what it is you can do whatever you want, but just remember where you're coming home.
Yeah. Well, and that goes into a saying that I feel like I've coined, because I've never heard anyone else say it, but nothing she does could ever bother me. Only something, or I'm sorry, nothing. It's the other way around. I've been drinking. Nothing that someone else does towards her will ever bother me. Only something that she did in response to it would ever bother me. If it really doesn't matter. Like, I don't care if guys oogle over her or have like crazy stuff that they want her to write on her prints or what. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I don't fucking care. There's a lot of guys out there that are so insecure they turn into these possessive, dominant, like, they have to assert themselves over the chick. Like, I fucking don't understand that. I've never had that sort of inclination ever in my entire life.
Yeah.
And
I've never even bought a print.
Yeah, well, and if people do, like, I don't care if people do. Like, I know Dean has every print she's ever sold. Wallpapered in his room. He sleeps under it, and I don't fucking care. Like, if people want to call him weird, then whatever. For me, it's just like, hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
He finds my wife hot just like I do. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, so it's one of those things where I hope people realize that only a dumbass would go all caveman on someone else for finding their wife attractive. Like, only a fucking moron would take offense to that.
Yeah.
And feel the need to just, like, assert himself over somebody who, you know, is in that position. Like, it's just stupid. It's something I've never been able to relate to or understand.
Yeah.
And that's why you and I hit it off, you know? Like, if I had been some dick, you know, that had been like, don't look at my wife, you know? You'd be like, fuck this guy.
You know what? I'm not.
Fuck this guy.
I don't want him on my show.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember though, like as soon as I found out about, so my first Lindsay stream, right, was Overwatch actually. When the beta started, and I was like, well, I can't play right now. I got to do homework. Oh wait, I know Lindsay Elise's. Let me watch her play. And you showed up in the stream, right? And we were talking about, I think she was talking about Taco Bell, and I was just like, dude, make him get you Taco Bell. And then you showed up with Taco Bell, and I was all like, I like this guy.
Yeah, Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm.
Taco Bell's good.
Yeah, it was a great moment. And I was just like, you know what? This guy's cool. And then I found out you streamed at PAX East. And then I was like, well, now I'm just, you know, now I'm going to watch him for sure.
Yeah. It's really worked out great. There was a brief moment where, early on, before I started streaming full-time, where we considered trying to turn her channel into like a husband-wife gaming channel, you know, and just sort of share it. Mm-hmm. And like we both take turns streaming on it, and we do our dual streams together on it, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. There was a brief moment where I was like, maybe that would be best rather than me trying to start a new channel from the ground up and build it up and have two separate ones, you know. And I'm so glad we didn't do that because, you know, it turns out that you know, for the most part, the people who spend more time in my channel are very different than the people who spend more time in hers. There's definitely lots of crossover. People who watch both, but there's people who will only watch what I do and people who will only watch what she does.
Hashtag Team Grimace.
Yeah. and you want to make sure that, you know, you don't isolate your audience into one segment. You know, you want to. I think it's been much better that we've had these two channels that grow side by side and. I've watched other channels where they did do stuff like that, where they have a husband and wife.
Like
and
a guy and girl gaming.
Yeah, and there's another one called like Serious Gaming, and it's husband and wife. And I look at that and I'm just like, man, you know, like, I'm so glad we didn't go this direction because it would just make the chat awkward. You'd have all these conflicting archetypes, personality-wise, all in the same chat room all the time, and...
Where's the girl?
It'd just be weird, you know, like, it'd just be weird. Yeah, there'd be all these, you know, dudes who just want to see the girl, and then be all these guys who just want to see, like, my gameplay or, you know, whatever, you know, like, everyone's got different stuff that they're there to see and care about. Mm-hmm. So, I'm really glad. It's made it real easy to have people like, you know, like Maz and Swede and Don and, you know, guys that want to watch aggressive, hardcore FPS stuff, you know, versus people who are probably more interested in just sort of having like the social aspect with, you know, Lindsay just playing dumb stuff, and it's nice. They get kind of the best of both worlds now.
I mean, yeah, it's also weird for me because like I've never really. I think because of you, I've started wanting to get better and like Halo and things like that because I used to play all the time. And I kind of lost that in like high school, right? But I started watching your content, and then it made me refine this like aggressive, like competitive love. You know, like I love it when I do better than other people now. You know?
Yeah.
And then like I think because of you, it's like motivated me to like try and get that killing spree more often. You know?
Sure. And
I think you can't get that kind of thing from watching like for example, Lindsay, you know?
Yeah, she's not a competitive player. You know, she'll play some of the same games as me, but it's very casual and very laid back, and you know, that's just the way it is. It's not that the gameplay is bad; it's that it's not competitive, and you know, so there's a big difference there, and so it's good. It's been nice. You know, I've had a lot of people who've kind of like come from that side of things where they like this game, they like, you know, this Halo or this Titanfall or whatever that I'm playing, and they're like, how do I get as good as you, or how do I do this better, how do I do that better? And it's been fun to just like play with people like that, show them stuff. There's nothing in the world that feels better than having somebody learn something from you. You know, something that you discovered on your own or sort of coined on your own, like things that you do. Like I remember like when I first started streaming, the first Titanfall was pretty big still, and I played a lot of that because I was really good at it. And I had somebody, like I had more than one person, but I just remember I had one person in particular who had just lost to me come into my chat and say, "How did you get out of your Titan so fast?" Because he had rodeoed my Titan and he was, you know, doing damage to it, and the Titan was really weak. But you know, I heard him clanking around on the top. You hear that before they can actually do damage to your Titan. And in Titanfall 1, if you're in the Titan and you squat before you get out, you hit the ground faster. And you can flip around and shoot the guy off your Titan before they do any damage to you. And most people didn't know that. Most people would just be standing there in their Titan. They get out, and then they have like that 1 second drop, you know, and then they can turn around and try and do something. And it's even harder because they have to jump to see the top of their Titan. Whereas if you're crouched, you don't have to do that. So this guy had tried to rodeo me and finish off my Titan. I fucking crouched, got out, and killed him. And he was like, "What the fuck?" You know? He'd never seen that before. And he came into my chat, and I was like, "Oh, you just got to crouch, dude."
Yeah.
And I remember, like, a week later, that guy came back and was like, "Dude, I've been crouching every time I get out of my Titan, and I fucking kill him every time." I'm like, "Isn't it the best, dude?" I figured that out, like, one of the, like, I think it was during the beta, before the game even came out, I figured that out.
Like, but also, like, props to the guy who, like, invented drop shotting now.
Yeah.
I do that all the time in, like, Destiny 2. I've seen you do it. And, like...
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, it's situational, you know, because you lose all your mobility, but you're kind of sitting there. But, yeah, sometimes it'll save your life. And
because then the person's trying to go for the headshots and they gotta, you know...
Yeah, it's tough. It's a lot harder to hit somebody like that. But it just, you know, it feels... It's such a good feeling to just pass something like that on to somebody. And then they get better at the game, and then they feel better about their performance in the game, all because of some stupid little thing you told them about. You know? It's awesome.
I've definitely learned a lot of Halo tips from you. Like, I've gotten probably 3,000% better. Not that I'm good, but with the Magnum, like, I'm actually able to get headshots with it. Because at first I just used the AR all the time, and I was just like, why are all these people using the Magnum? And then I started using it, and I was just like,
Yeah. Yeah, it takes more skill, but it's much more versatile. Works at every range. Yeah, man. No, so I've always loved that. That's always been one of my absolute favorite parts of streaming, is just trying to help people get better. I think most people are like that. Most people want to teach others the stuff they know. They want to share the knowledge. So it's a common thing, but it's really crazy when you come across someone and they're able to absorb all this helpful stuff from you, and you know, it means a lot to them. You know, people like that are the people who are like, you know, they'll continue watching you for years to come. They'll gift subs to people. They'll donate. You know, like, it makes a big impression, and I love that. I never expected that streaming would be something that I could pay the bills with and live my life off of. You know, I don't make anywhere near the money I made when I sold software, but I don't care. You know, like, I don't have to deal with bullshit anymore. I can just do what I love, and people love it. So it's great. It's win-win.
Although I sometimes feel like there's this weird, like, disconnect that happens because I mean, obviously not everybody can afford to have, like, all the subs or, like, constantly donate like $100 even, and I feel like that kind of, like, even if they, like, super, like, appreciate the channel and things like that, like, it kind of builds this I don't really, like, a hierarchy, I guess, in viewership.
Higher, or more people, or some people are more important than others, or something? Or
I think so. Like,
yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, people build up, you know, a reputation in the channel where, you know, they support it on a level that not many people do. You know, you've got people like Foss and Rolling Rock and Rue and Earmoof and
Earmoof is literally one of the, like, most generous guys I know in my life.
Yeah,
he's so great.
Yeah, you have these people who just genuinely want to make sure that what you do doesn't stop. They don't want your channel to go away. They don't want you to stop streaming. You know, that was something I didn't expect. And I don't think I've heard a lot of streamers talk about this that are big channels. I've heard a lot of people talk about this where they get sort of blindsided by the fact that there's a lot of people out there who just aren't very social, like in terms of going out and doing things and interacting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they're antisocial. It's that they're just, they're introverts. They're homestays. There's people who are agoraphobic. Like there's just all these things that Twitch becomes an outlet for,
mm-hmm.
that allows them to socialize with people in the same way you would at a mall or something, and it's very precious to them. It matters to them on like it's crucial. It's integral,
mm-hmm.
and in many cases it changes their lives. I've had people talk about how they, struggle with depression and suicide and all this stuff, and how my channel somehow alleviates that for them, and I'm just, it's daunting to hear that, because you're like, holy shit, like I didn't know, that's a pretty insane thing to wrap my mind around. I never set out to help people like this, but I'm so glad it does.
I can definitely relate to that sentiment. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, this is kind of a personal issue. I've been going to therapy recently because I went to the doctors and they diagnosed me with depression, and they said that I needed help and I needed to do a lot of things. And I feel like one of the things that actually helped me was, even if I'm not there all the time, I love watching like your content.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that might show bias or anything like that, but I just want you to know that I'm like super grateful, and
I'm grateful for you. So it's a mutual feeling.
And I'm super happy you were totally cool with being on my show.
Yeah, man. For sure.
Because that was like super important to me. I'm like tearing up a little bit. Sorry.
Drink to that. You don't gotta drink.
I don't gotta drink.
What the hell? You need to know. I gotta do this over.
I'm so sorry.
All right, take it from the top.
All right. Okay, so for
cheers.
Cheers, dude. Thank you. That's good.
Yep.
But yeah, like seriously, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so glad that it serves a greater purpose, because it was never meant to. But now that I know it does, and that there's people out there who more or less rely on it, in a sense, I'm never gonna stop. And I just hope going forward that people sort of carry that vibe towards the ones that come into the channel for the first time. Because if I have this many people who struggle with stuff like this and sort of use the stream as a resource in that sense to socialize and get around these problems, there's got to be so many more out there, Mm-hmm. And so I just hope that I hope that the channel continues to be, a place where people can just be themselves. I cringe hardcore at the channels that are like positivity, only positive vibes.
Hashtag PMA.
Yeah, like that shit to me is one of the most dangerous things ever, because all you're doing when you focus on nothing but positive vibes and positivity, like you're just suppressing the real problems of the world. Look, in life, not to get too deep, but in life you're going to face a fair bit of suffering. All right, and a lot of it's going to be unjust.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? Just pretend it doesn't exist and be positive? No, you fucking face it head on,
mm-hmm.
and you try to transform as a consequence.
Yeah, because bearing it is not the answer.
Bearing it and overcoming it is the answer.
Yeah.
Like letting it weigh you down to a dangerous place is not the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But humans, people in general, were built to carry loads because it gives you a sense of purpose and it gives you a sense of direction. And when you achieve that, you grow as a person. Mm-hmm. You become more confident. You become stronger. You become better equipped to deal with the world. And so I always want my stream to be a place where, rather than just showering people with positivity, I try and shower them with, the message to adopt responsibility. I'm like, don't just rage quit, Don't bail out of a game where you're getting dumped on. Get better, Work on this, work on that. Go watch the video after you get fucking shit on. Learn from it, Adopt some responsibility and build value into yourself. I know that sounds cheesy, but that's what makes people happy. You can't just tell yourself to be happy. You can't just decide to focus on nothing but positivity. You have to take the good with the bad and transform as a consequence. So I hope that my channel at least helps people continue to do that, and people who are in a catastrophic crisis of identity or sadness or whatever it is that they're dealing with, can walk into that channel and be faced with an accepting group that will not sugarcoat shit and support people in the process. That's what I want to do more than anything. So,
Papa bless.
Papa bless. Sure. Gotta love Ethan Klein, man.
I mean, those memes, man.
The memes are strong. I mean, come on, Vape Nation is one of my emotes.
Yeah, it is. You guys gotta check out his emotes. I love the one that's just woke as fuck.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. I tell so many people, like, every time this dude gets drunk and everything, he's like, I'm about to get woke, and I'm just like, yes.
Get woke, don't choke. Yeah, you know it.
Man.
Well, you got any final questions? Anything else stirring around?
If there was one thing you could tell, like, everyone who watches you now, who watch you in the future, who will hopefully check out his channel, what would you tell them?
To anybody, existing or future?
Yep.
Oh. Jeez, that's a good question. Because, that's a very rare and unique opportunity to deliver a statement that's both profound and productive. But I'd rather just say, don't expect much, I'm drunk.
Where's the grimace?
Just use it as some sort of drunken disclaimer. That way people can't ever be upset. Like, I heard you were good at this. Why are you fucking losing? Like, I've had 10 beers. Get off my back. Let's see how you shoot after
It's
10 beers.
Nagging.
And someone in the chat will be like, you've actually had 11 beers, Zach. And 2 shots.
You're drunker than you think you are. Oh, man. You've had...
And I'll be like, thank you, Pink. Eat Arby's.
That nihilistic Arby's is probably my favorite thing you've ever, talked about.
Yeah.
I follow that Twitter now.
That's good, dude. That's on point.
You guys gotta watch it. It'll be or follow it. It's like...
Nihilist Arby's.
It's like if... Just remember, you're a floating corpse who was put on Earth for no reason. Eat Arby's.
Yeah. Yeah, they hand out some really inspirational stuff. It's,
I still haven't been to Arby's, though.
Wake up every day, read their latest tweet, and you'll live a very motivated life.
Yeah. You'll definitely develop an obsession with Arby's.
All right, well, I'll ask you a question then. What do you want to do with your life? What's your dream job?
Well, my dream job, I've been thinking long and hard about this. For those of you who don't know, I'm about to graduate from college, which is probably one of the scariest things I've ever personally faced, because I had no idea I would ever even begin to make content. I had no idea I would be here right now with Grimace shooting a show, and I think that's really had a large impact on me. And personally, I don't want to stop this. I want to keep producing shows. I want to keep making content. I want to keep being a part of the things that I'm in. So I guess for my dream job, this is it. I'm doing what I love. I'm getting to meet people who mean a lot to me. I'm getting to, show you guys some really, really cool stuff. Or at least I find it cool. And I hope you do too. So I guess this
So you want to
my dream
be
job.
like a film vlogger creator,
Yeah,
something like that?
that's I guess
Cool.
what I've aspired to be, you know.
Yeah.
And like meeting people like you, meeting people like Lindsay, you know, developing on a characteristic that people have always told me like I've had, you know, like they've always been like, dude, you're so outgoing, or dude, you make me laugh all the time, or you're so incredibly awkward and cringy, I love it. It's just like, it's great, you know, getting to meet even more people than I could with any other job. Like, you can't, if you're working, you know, if you're working in an office, like, you're gonna know the same people every day, and I don't want that. That ain't me. I'm not good at numbers. I'm not good at keeping track of things, but I'm good at getting drunk and eating pizza.
That's a rare skill. Most people can't.
Yeah, it's like, well, do you start crust first, or do you...
Yeah. Yeah.
And take it from this guy, though. He's the drunk master. Like, there's no one else. You know what? I dare you to find someone. You won't. You won't.
Well, there's one guy who used to drink as much as me on the Man Show back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been 2000s, actually. But he played the piano. He was an old guy. And he'd have 2 mugs. And at the end of every show, he'd say, like, ziggy zaggy, oi, oi, oi. And then he would just, you know, kill them both.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that man was an inspiration to me. He died shortly after that show. And I'm pretty sure it was complications brought on by alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I feel like I've achieved, you know, what I sought out to achieve based on the way that that man inspired me, which is drinking from a vessel much larger than what he drank from. And, you know, I've killed that boot over 100 times, you know. So I might die young too, but I drank way more beer than that guy fucking did. So
At least you had fun.
yeah, if you had fun, you won.
Yep. Life's about having fun. Remember that. All right, well, thank you very much for being on this show.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Make sure you check out his channel. Check out Lindsay. And if you ever want me to meet anybody else like this, hashtag PGP, tag the person, tag me, Dally Sauce, it's going to be in the description. Do it, and I'll do it for you.
Do it. You won't.
You won't. All right, well, thank you guys, and have a great slice.
Yeah.